Today we're going to be installing our first performance mod on the new C8 Z06, and it's with our new sponsor, Solar Performance. So let's get started with this video. So thanks for tuning into the channel. So like I said before, we are going to be installing the first performance mod on the C8 Z06. And guys, I am super excited. It is with a new sponsor. It is Solar Performance, and we're going to be featuring their throttle bodies that they have for the C8 Corvette, specifically the Z06s. And what's special about it is not only am I going to be able to provide a discount code if you're interested in a throttle body for your C8 Corvette, but I am actually going to be showing their new generation throttle bodies that they have. So they originally had their throttle bodies for the C8 Z06 as the 87mm throttle bodies. They have now upgraded to a new version, which is the 91mm. And it's not just a bigger size, they did some other improvements that we're going to talk about all that. But on top of these, they also sent me this little special box right here, which is a throttle controller. And this I'm really excited to share with you guys as well. This is going to make a huge difference, not only to customizing your throttle control, but also can act as a kill switch. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later on, and we're going to go into detail in a future video for this specifically. All of these you can purchase at Solar Performance, and you can use my discount code New Horizon to save 5% on your order should you choose to buy one. But with that being said, let's take a look at these throttle bodies, and we're going to take a look at the generation one first, which is the 87mm, and then look at their newest ones that literally I have one of two that they've just manufactured. I know the other one went to another hardcore Corvette YouTuber. I can't say who, but we were both lucky enough to get these as the newest ones. So we're actually gonna put the newer generation ones in there. But either way, both of these generations offer huge performance improvements. Just think of it as like generation of iPhone. So like this is iPhone 15 and this is iPhone 16. So it's just the next generation. This still gives you a large majority of the improvements. This just does a little bit more. Alrighty, so looking at these throttle bodies, what are you actually improving on these? And essentially what is happening is it is improving the airflow from your air filter or your cold air intake, and just improving the efficiency of that airflow before it gets into your engine and mixes with fuel, to get your combustion going on, then exhaust, mechanical energy and horsepower, all that kind of good stuff. This is what modulates your throttle input, and how it's been improved is inside the actual circular area here. So the circular area here, in regards to where these divots are on the OEM, they are pretty hard cut, which causes some turbulent flow, causes loss in efficiency. Solar Performance has gone ahead and improved these by tapering these a bit and just improving the overall airflow. You have also dimples on the top here. All of this is to improve the airflow, both when these open up on your partial and just full on wide open throttle. So you get improved airflow all across the board. And where these honestly really shine is not even on the peak performance. These really do just shine on your mid power band. You're gonna see a lot better of your throttle performance in that mid power band area, especially specifically on the Z06. You see it also on other vehicles, which by the way, they do throttle bodies for a ton of different vehicles. I'll just quickly list some of them. It's not just C8 Corvette, they do a whole bunch of other ones, Jeeps, I think Porsches and such. In any case, they do a whole bunch of it, so it's not just limited to the C8 Corvette. Anyways, I got a little sidetracked. So these in particular are going to improve the mid power band on the C8 Corvette Z06. It's kind of, now that I've had my C8 Z06 compared to the Stingray, the mid power band is kind of a little bit sluggish. It could use a little bit more oomph to get it going, like before you actually go into full wide open throttle at high RPMs. It's that mid-range and low to mid-range that's kind of almost a little bit lazy. Which is actually interesting considering that this has 170 more horsepower than my C8 Stingray when I had that. But the C8 Stingray felt a lot more like it had more grunt at the lower to mid power band range. So this is going to be an absolute huge improvement to that. If you're wondering horsepower gains, there are horsepower gains. Solar Performance doesn't really like to focus as much on that because it's very reliant on what you have coming coming into this in regards to airflow, whether it is your OEM air filter or a cold air intake. Depending on what system you have on, depends on varies the level of increased efficiency that you get from this. And there are increased efficiencies. I can tell you reasonably, you can get anywhere from 25 to 30 horsepower increase on these. Like I said, Solar Performance just doesn't like to focus on that as much, solely because just that range varies quite a bit depending on what you got going in there. Now let's talk about price on these. Now the new generation ones haven't been officially released yet as to my knowledge, but I do know that they are a little bit more expensive than the generation one. The generation one, if I remember seeing correctly, was around the $800 mark in regards to retail price. They do have sales that go along. And then again, if you use my code New Horizon, my discount code, you can save 5% on your order. So if you are interested in these, definitely use that discount code. It is gonna save you a little bit of money on these. They do have programs where you can send your OEM throttle bodies and they will port it out for you at a reduced price. And I believe that's somewhere around the $500 range. They take off like $200 or so. And then they do have one where it is that you do pay the full price for it and then send your OEMs to them and they reimburse you a part of that back. So there are a few different options in regards to payments for these. And I think the price for what you get is pretty good. Now let's take a look at these generation 2. Now these are the new 91mm throttle bodies that you can get, and they look freaking spectacular. And there's a lot more going on here in this second generation than there is on the first generation. One of the particular things that I want to kind of point out is the actual rod that goes across here. It actually doesn't go across on the 91mm. If I compare it to the 87mm, you see that rod going right through. It's right there. And essentially what happens when you have wide open throttle, this rod actually kind of gets in the way and starts to decrease the airflow efficiency. I mean, this has already improved airflow efficiency, but if we take a look at the generation 2 version, you don't have that rod on that side. And they've actually come and tapered on the edges of where the rod connects here. So what happens when you go wide open throttle, this is way more improved. And then on top of that, this extra feature here, which I'm gonna nerd out in a second for you guys, right here, this part right here on the back here, they applied dimples on the back side of this rod here. Now guys, that excites me so much because of my engineering background as an aerospace engineer. I know exactly what's going on with that. And the fastest analogy I can give you guys is think of like a golf ball. A golf ball is dimpled to reduce the amount of drag that is going on. The same principles as a golf ball is happening here on the back end of this throttle body. So when the airflow is going through, it is hitting these dimples and improving the actual airflow. And the airflow in general between the generation 1 and generation 2, the improvement just between these two is about 10%, which is a huge amount of airflow improvement that I am totally 100% on board with. And the fact that they have thought about doing these dimples, I mean, that is so cool in regards to just that improved efficiency on these. That is the kind of stuff that improves the airflow, that whether you have your OEM air filter or you got a cold air intake like Eventori or one of those, you're getting the most bang for your buck out of your filter system using these throttle bodies, especially this Gen 2. I am super excited about this Gen 2. As of right now, in regards to recording this video, I don't believe they've actually officially launched this as a product to sell yet, but I do believe that the price, at least for these, are about $100 more than the generation 1s. The generation 1 is still very good. You're still gonna get much more improvement in regards to your airflow and such. These generation 2, again, it's the difference between iPhone 15 to iPhone 16. They're gonna make a huge difference, either one that I put in, honestly, but I'm excited to put this one in. We're gonna definitely put the generation 2 in, and it is just gonna be so much fun to see the difference in regards to the improvement of airflow and such. It is just super nice. But either way, going from the throttle body, once we improve this, the next thing is going to definitely be this little box right here in regards to your throttle controller. This is what's going to allow you the full customization of your throttle input to get the most bang out of your buck for these different throttle bodies. So combining these two together, is the ultimate deal, and these I believe sell for around $250. I'll show a screenshot of what the actual price is, and these not only work for the C8 Corvette, they actually work for a whole bunch of different platforms as well. C7, I think the Cadillac CTV. This is basically going to unleash your C8 Corvette to give you the most bang for your buck kind of deal. But like I said, we're gonna do its own video in regards to this at a later time, because this deserves its own video. With that being said, let's get these installed in the car and see how this goes. So alrighty guys, so we have finished installing the throttle bodies on the C8 Z06. Full disclosure, I actually have the 87mm installed currently. I did install the Gen 2 throttle bodies, the 91mm, the bigger one, initially, and tried it out, all that kind of good jazz. And I thought I recorded it, and I did, but the files got kind of corrupted. So I'm gonna have to make a second video just strictly for the second gen throttle body. But I can tell you that it was a hell of a difference going from stock to that Gen 2. But I did want to check out the Gen 1, the 87mm that's been out on the market, tried and true from Solar Performance, just to get a comparison to see what the difference between the two is. And if there is a big enough difference that you can tell, first of all, and secondly, because the Gen 2 is technically an early release to me and a couple of other people, it's still not yet out on full production. So if you're wanting some functional, decent power gains, especially on the low to mid power bands, that 87mm, we're gonna test out to see if it is truly worth it. I have a sneaking suspicion it is. But if you're wanting a quick analogy between what the factory and the Gen 2 throttle body were, I like to think of it as the factory GM with the factory throttle body was kind of like a Bowie knife. It was functional, useful for a whole bunch of different things. The Gen 2 throttle body, though, transforms the Z06 into a freaking samurai sword. I kid you not. It transforms the Z06 into a weapon. It is alive at all power band ranges, and it was absolutely amazing to see the difference, feel the difference, hear the difference. You could hear the difference as well without having to do an exhaust. It made the actual exhaust notes at the different RPMs way more pronounced, way more enjoyable. If you have a Z06, there's certain RPM ranges like 3,500 RPMs where you don't really hear the Z06 exhaust, even if you have it in like the loud mode and such, like the stock exhaust that is. But with this throttle body, interestingly enough, you can now distinctly hear the whole entire range, which was really nice. And I mean, honestly, guys, I mean, that LT6 motor, that's part of the reason why you get a Z06 is just hearing that engine. And you definitely hear it throughout all the different power bands. But again, I'm gonna do a full review of the Gen 2 Solar Performance throttle body when it's getting really close to actually being released. Because again, I have an early release version, but we're gonna take a look at their tried and true 87mm throttle body and see if there is, one, a difference between the factory, and two, if there's a difference between this Gen 1 version and the new Gen 2 version that is gonna be coming out soon. So let's take a ride. Alrighty, firing this up. I gotta love that startup. I mean, it just sounds so good. I gotta take off my radar detector so it doesn't keep on interrupting. I mean, it's great that it tells me where cops are, but at the same time, it just kind of goes off for everything else. So it's kind of a little annoying when I'm trying to talk. That being said, I do have currently my mic set up without any kind of noise canceling, so you can get the true sound of what the engine sounds like, kind of deal. So if it sounds a little bit noisy in general while I'm driving, that's kind of the reason why. That being said, so it sounds pretty strong and pretty good in regards to that initial start up, and taking the quick drive out of here. Let's see how that goes. So I can already tell it's pretty interesting. So the I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Gen 2 because I'm gonna have to tease about it, and I'm just so excited about that Gen 2. But I will say that this Gen 1, the 87mm one, doing the first initial corners of driving around and such, it sounds slightly more aggressive, more tonal than the factory throttle body that I had installed. Okay, let's do a first quick little pull. Not bad, not bad. I can definitely feel the responsiveness on the initial side on the low to mid range. That was only me doing 50% throttle input, and it was definitely up and going. Whereas before I felt like I'd have to almost go wide open throttle on the lower mid range just to get the feeling that I'm looking for in regards to that initial grunt, that initial push before the power band is effectively utilizing a lot of that horsepower on the Z06. So that's actually a really good start. That was exactly how I was feeling with the 91mm, the Gen 2. This 87mm, I'm feeling it is meeting the functionality that I would expect from the Z06, and that's kind of what I was hoping for. I wanted the Z06 to actually feel what I expected from it, from all the different ranges in the power band, and it's definitely doing that here. Okay, let's see. Let's do another quick pull. Yeah, definitely. So that was wide open throttle just to get that initial acceleration, and it is definitely way more responsive. I am definitely loving how this is feeling from the factory throttle body. It is just adding that extra bit that you were kind of expecting from the Z06. I know I'm probably saying the same thing over and over again, but I definitely feel like this Gen 1 throttle body is meeting the expectations that you were expecting when you got a Z06. I mean, yeah, when you get a Z06 for the first time, you're just in shock and awe, and you absolutely love it, and it's just the best thing. But after you drive it for a little bit, and I'm sure a lot of my Z06 owners would agree, you start noticing how much of the power band, like how much it is not as responsive on the low to mid range. And it's more noticeable when you're on the highway and you're kind of cruising, that you want to kind of not aggressively pass somebody, but like just casually pass, like just traffic in general, somebody that was in front of you maybe going a little bit slower, and you don't not necessarily want to drop a gear to go and do that. You just want to do it in a higher gear. And I know that this fits the bill in regards to that. At least when I did the test with the Gen 2, it definitely did that. And based on how this is feeling, it is accomplishing that as well. Now it's only been a little bit of a drive still, so I'm not going to put a definitive number of a percentage improvement between the Gen 1 and the Gen 2, but it is, I would say there is an improvement. The little bit that I've driven so far, the Gen 1 is definitely hitting the bills of what, like I said, what you expect. But the Gen 2, I think it is just kind of unleashing everything, probably, I would say about 20% more in all the different regards. And that includes the extra little bit of power in the functional effective ranges that you want it to for the Z06. And like the sound is a little bit deeper, more distinctive, a little bit louder in the Gen 2 than the Gen 1, but both of them still are distinctively more aggressive sounding than the factory throttle body. And I know a few of my other fellow YouTubers have done reviews on the solar throttle body for the Z06 in particular, and they've shown that there is a significant increase in horsepower on the low to mid range. So I'm not going to go into all the details in regards to that, because most people can find those videos and they're pretty self-explanatory in regards to the numbers. But the feel, I can definitely feel the difference between the factory and this Gen 1 and Gen 2 throttle bodies. I would very much think overall, performance-wise, this is the best bang for your buck that you can get. I mean, 700, if you're going for a brand new one, like that, you're not getting like using their promotional where you can send your throttle body and they'll do all the porting and then send it back, which is a little bit cheaper. If you get just a brand new throttle body that's like $700 for the Gen 1, I personally believe that will beat any kind of cold air intake in regards to useful functional horsepower along the entire power band range. Cold air intakes, yes, they're gonna bring in a good amount of horsepower, but it's gonna be on the higher end most of the time. It's not gonna be on the low to mid range. I know certain cold air intakes actually try to capitalize on trying to get like that mid range and such, and there are certain ones that do some kind of improvement, but I think this throttle body, I think, is essential to getting more useful power on an everyday, day-to-day basis kind of deal. I think that is going to make more of a difference to people, to Z06 owners, than it would just getting a cold air intake, which is going to still end up being more expensive than getting a throttle body, depending on which one you get. The Inventories, I love the Inventories. I want to get one for this Z06. Hint, hint, I might end up getting one, which combined with a throttle body is going to be insane. But in general, I think in regards to functional, useful horsepower, I think this throttle body is definitely hitting the bill really, really well. I'm definitely happy with how this is feeling. All right, we're going to get on the highway. Hopefully there's not too much traffic and we can really see what's going on with this thing. A little bit of traffic, but that's fine. It's going to give me a good opportunity to kind of demonstrate what I mean in regards to functional horsepower, especially on like the lower to mid range. So like right now I'm just cruising and doing about 73, 72 miles an hour, decent amount of traffic. I'm not trying to blow past people all crazy, but I'm in 5th gear currently and I want to pass this car that's in front of me. At 3.5 RPMs, I can decently do that. I mean, although this car decided to turn just as I did, but I can do that reasonably and feel pretty comfortable being able to grunt. And I know I really couldn't do that well on the factory throttle body, and this is hitting that bill of, again, functional horsepower on your everyday day-to-day driving it. And like going through the different RPM ranges, so I'm at just under 3,000 RPMs, which gives a really good distinctive growl that you can hear. It was distinctive to hear on just the regular factory throttle body. This new Gen 1 factory throttle body, I can definitely hear it a little bit more distinctively. The Gen 2, I could definitely freaking hear it. But yeah, overall, really, really, really cool. I definitely like it a lot. And again, if you are interested in purchasing one of these for yourself, I do have a discount code with Solar Performance. If you use the code New Horizon, you can get 5% off of your order and save yourself a little bit of money and get yourself this awesome piece. And again, we're also going to have a full how-to instructional video on how to do it, especially for my hardtop convertible owners. There is a few extra steps that need to be done in regards to being able to install this on the convertible as compared to the coupe. The coupe's honestly a little bit easier to install just because you have easier access both on the engine side and the trunk side. With the hardtop convertible, you have to kind of open one at a time because you can't close either one, or you can't have both of them open at the same time, essentially. So you have to have one or the other open while you're working. But I figured out a pretty easy process so that you're not having to go back and forth between both sides to get it basically installed. And honestly, these throttle bodies do such a great job of just enhancing the crispness of the throttle as you're pushing. And this is without Solar Performance's throttle controller, which is going to be another video where we can then customize our throttle input. So instead of going with the factory settings in regards to your throttle input, which is kind of like a ramp setting, so it's kind of spongy between 0 to 50% throttle input, and then it actually starts giving you more power, you can actually adjust that to give you a more linear, more aggressive throttle input, so that on the lower to mid range, you're actually getting more of an initial grunt when you're pushing your foot like down on the throttle. And the great thing about those throttle controllers is that they also work as a kill switch, which is another great thing that I'm sure my C8 owners would definitely appreciate. I know certain other YouTubers, Conti has talked a whole bunch about throttle controllers, so that's going to be another upcoming video that, combined with the throttle body, this throttle controller is going to make a huge difference. So definitely keep an eye out for that video. When that video comes out, I'll probably put it right here or here. I don't know where I'm going to put it. It'll be one of those two places. But when that video comes out, you definitely want to check it out. In the meantime, please check out any of my other videos, and we'll see you next time. Take care, guys.